across the country on various newspapers as well this morning. Who is making headlines and why? And the big dilemma that Ruto is in the middle of. Also, we'll be telling you about members of parliament's plot to grab state tenders. There's a bill that has been tabled before the August House that will allow persons in public offices to get state tenders, a move that has previously received a lot of backlash, as well as on the Star financial mess at Hustler Fund. And I'll be telling you about what the Auditor General has unearthed over the, I'd say Ruto's baby in the run-up to the August 2022 elections, to which he said he would be supporting the persons, hustlers with this particular kitty. So we've got quite a lot in store for you this morning, which you can be part of. Watch us live across all our streaming platforms on EBN TV, as well as our feedback line is open to 3059. Do tell us where you're watching us from this morning, even as I'll be joined in studio very shortly with a governance expert as well as political commentators, just to have their say on what is happening across the country. So it is a jam-packed show indeed. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Let me first bring you up to speed on stories making headlines across the country. Now, Kenya's Faith Kipyegon brought the globe to its feet once again when she smashed the women's 1500-meter world record at the Paris Diamond League on Sunday evening. Kipyegon clocked 3 minutes 49.04 seconds to clinch first place ahead of Australia's Jessica Hull, who timed a personal best of 3 minutes 50.8 seconds, and Great Britain's Laura Moore clocked a personal best of 3 minutes 53.79 seconds to cross the finish line in third. Now, this is the fourth time the two-time Olympics 1500-meter champion has broken a world record in just less than a year. Briefly, now youths flocked to Uhuru Park grounds, the site of the Shuja's memorial concert, dressed in black and waving the Kenyan flag to honor those killed during the anti-government protests over the last 3 weeks. Some concert goers demanded justice for those killed by rogue police officers exercising their democratic right. Now, Kenyan entertainers and activists who continue to rally the youth against bad leadership were among those in attendance. The Shuja's memorial concert, which coincides with the historical Sabasaba Day, a commemoration of July 7th, 1990, protests that agitated for multi-party democracy, was the culmination of protests that had been ongoing for 3 weeks. The protesters, majority of whom are disenfranchised Kenyan youth, have demanded that the government take action against runaway corruption, unchecked spending, and an overhaul of Kenya's parliament.
Daktari wa Kenyatta alikuwa ameshaniambia ukimkosa huku kama kurudi jana, wewe enda kwanza, utaenda city, utaamua tu uende city muangalie mochari. Sasa vile nenda Mbagathi nikamkosa, nikaamua kwenda city. Huko city ndio kwenye nilimpata. Kwanza kwa wale polisi waliwao vijana wote, haki itendeke. Hiyo ndio kwenye mimi ningesema sana, haki itendeke.
Heroes kwetu kabisa. Kwa sababu kasi wao, easy kitote happen.
That the National Police Service return to the rule of law, so that as they keep protesters safe, as the law requires them, they do not use extra legal means.
That the struggle continues. We are strong. This is a fight for liberating this country from the lords of poverty, leaders who just take advantage of the Kenyan people. So we're here to celebrate. Kenyans are paying for it. There's no single person who can say that I've paid for anything. There's no, we tried Safaricom online, wakasema zi, wakakata. So my best to I've put some of my money here and friends actually, yeah. But you guys focus on the wrong things. Why are you focusing on the money? It's very important. It's a big lineup of artists, but it's just a celebrations, and then we're going to get the family members of those who we lost to come and speak to the country. They died so that the government could listen. It took too many people to die for the government to listen, but now the government is listening.
A section of prominent leaders allied to the Azimio la Umoja coalition have demanded the resignation of President William Ruto while showing solidarity with the young Kenyan protesters. Addressing journalists in Meru County, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka commended the youth, now referred to as the Gen Z, for their continued protests against the ruling government and urged them to soldier on. He further commended the Senate for supporting the need for austerity demanded by Gen Zs, adding that the government is largely aided by corrupt individuals who keep on looting public resources. The Democratic Action Party of Kenya party leader Eugene Wamalwa further called for the ousting of President Ruto, arguing that all his reforms are just cosmetics to quell public rage.
IEBC Amendment Bill 2024, which William Ruto has promised to sign into law. We say that this should be done expeditiously on this Sabasaba day so that we can have the process get underway. Everybody, including the church, has been called by Gen Zs to be accountable. That's why we say this country will never be the same again. We were saying justice for Rex Masai, but not just for Rex because he was the first one to fall this year. The 75 of them who fell last year and whose families are still distraught with grief, justice for them as well.
Today we hear these young heroes saying Ruto must go, and Ruto will go. We have no doubt about that. It's a matter of time.
We say that people, men and women who have responsibility over these deaths still, and we know them, we have called for their resignation, and the responsibility begins from the very top.
Kennedy Onyango, a boy killed by bullets during anti-government demonstrations in Rongai, has been marred by controversies. That's the burial, as the dust was yet to settle on whether Kennedy died after a gunshot from rogue police or from rogue protesters, as stated by President William Ruto. Tragedy befell his family on Saturday as mourners led by her mother Jacinta Onyango were heading to Risinga Island to lay him to rest. The mourners were intercepted in Mbita town by a group led by Kennedy's father Dennis Okinyi, who were armed with a court order stopping the burial of Kennedy in Kamasengre village. Behind her tears, Jacinta is asking for government's intervention to let her bury her child, stating that Okinyi was an absentee father whose name does not appear in Kennedy's birth certificate. She claims that Okinyi told or only appeared after realizing that the government was taking care of the burial expenses and that all he wanted was to take charge of the contributions. Now, the mother of the killed boy, on the other hand, the father explained why he took the move, and this is what he had to say.
Nikijua mtoto wangu nakuja kuzika, yeye kama baba basi yeye anachukua mtoto wangu. Mimi nilikuwa naleta mtoto wangu nyumbani azikwe. Kennedy Onyango. Kufika hapa Mbita, tukachukuliwa na maaskari. Hadi saa hii sijui mtoto wangu wako wapi, sijui amepelekwa wapi, sijamuona, sina habari yoyote. Hiyo siku tu jioni Ruto alinipigia. Nikasema ndio huyo sasa president amenirumia, amenipigia. Kunipigia akaniambia Mama Kennedy, nikamwambia tafadhali serikali nisaidie, mtoto wangu nimenyang'anywa. Tangu mtoto akufe hajai kanyaga hata Rongai. Alinitusi wakati alisikia mtoto amekufa. Tena ameona president akiongea, akisema atatafuta Mama Kennedy, wazazi wake, hiyo familia, aongee na yeye. Ndio huyo baba akatokelezea. Nisaidie nipate mtoto wangu. Sijui pali wamempeleka, sijui amezikwa, sijui amepotelezwa wapi. Sasa tena naona ametokelezea juu ya pesa. Amesikia ni pesa sasa. Gharama yote amesikia ni gharama. Wakati alisikia ni gharama, alijitolea, alinitusi. Wakati ameona Rikomondi akaanza kumwambia, nimejua ni pesa juu amemwambia Rikomondi eti asitumie huyo baba pesa, yeye ndiye atumiwe.
Nilipofika huko nilipata kama mahali mbia yote imefungwa. Sasa nisingeweza kuingia huko juu nilisindwa juu ya serikali. Sasa ili nibidi niende kwa koti ili nione vile naweza kata nini, vile naweza ili nione vile naweza ingia kwa mwili ya mtoto wangu.
So mama alikuwa anajaribu kuficha mtoto aenda mzike bila baba kujua, lakini nilijaribu juu chini babangu ajue, juu hakuna venye baba anaweza poteza mtoto wake.
Now 5 people including 2 National Police reservists have been killed by bandits in Mutwati, Igembe North in Meru County. County Commissioner Fred Ndunga said the bandits suspected to be from Samburu County raided Njaruine village and stole more than 100 cattle. Eyewitnesses claim close to 40 heavily armed bandits struck and overpowered the police reservists before taking off with the livestock.
Imefuatwa leo na kikosi cha RDU mpaka kule Shaba. Inaonekana wamevukisha pande ya Samburu East kule hiyo mlima Bendera, na tumeongea na wenzetu wafunge kutoka hiyo mlima Bendera kuelekea kule Lesesia ndio recovery ifanyike. Wenzetu wa Samburu East tumeongea na wao tayari wameingia hiyo shughuli. Kufa nimesema ni watu 5, askari moja, mzee mmoja mwenye ng'ombe na mwingine. Hawa ni watu wa Mutwati na majambazi 2 wale wametoka Samburu. Afueni na wale wamepoteza watu wao, hao wawili wetu kutoka Dhirua na Mudhara, watakia pole sababu hii ni janga ilipata sisi.
Now to the newspapers, The Standard, to fire or to keep, Ruto's cabinet dilemma. To fire or to keep, Ruto's cabinet dilemma, a fresh headache for President William Ruto, who faces probably the biggest test of his presidency on who to fire from cabinet. In a government where loyalty precedes any other qualification, Ruto faces a Herculean task of letting go of his friends. Now, according to Munene Macharia, a political commentator, he says the president is facing an internal crisis on how to balance national and personal interest as far as reconstituting of his cabinet is concerned. Now, there have been calls to reduce the cabinet, which is currently at about 22, to the constitutionally stipulated 14. If you add the Attorney General, that gets to 15. So it's a question of will he reshuffle or will he do away with some of the CSs? Now, according to insiders who attended that meeting, it is stated that some of the ministries have been merged so as to see that, you know, that number is effectively reduced within the cabinet. Now, the head of state has been under pressure from the Gen Zs, from the general public, from the opposition, to ensure that he reduces his cabinet, even as he announced new austerity measures on Friday, which include, you know, a 50% reduction of his advisors, the scrapping of 47 state parastatals, which one way or the other, you know, are sort of similar, as well as budget cuts to the office of the First Lady, office of the Second Lady, as well as office of the spouse to the Prime Cabinet Secretary. So those are some of the offices that have received budget cuts and much more that he announced, which we'll be getting into detail. But that is the, you know, I'd say, you know, position that he finds himself in between a rock and a hard place. Does he fire or does he keep his cabinet ministers? Now, in honor of the fallen Gen Z, that is also a headline that has made it to the Standard. Thousands gather at Nairobi's Uhuru Park for the Sabasaba Memorial Concert in honor of youths who were killed during protests against the Finance Bill 2024. Now, 41 lives were lost during the protests that spread across the country for 2 weeks. And the final week, which was largely infiltrated by looters. Also, doctors to down tools over interns' medical cover. Now, today, doctors backed by Gen Z protesters intend to storm Afya House to push for the Ministry of Health to post intern doctors and provide comprehensive medical cover to civil servants. Now, if you remember, from the month of March to April, we had a doctor's strike that went, I believe, more than 50 days. And then they eventually signed the CBA, or not even a CBA, it was an agreement that, you know, the government has 3 months to act on these issues that they had agreed upon. And so we find ourselves yet again in a catch-22 scenario where we have doctors downing their tools, medical services in the country are still not being fully, given out, considering that we are having a transition from NHIF to SHIF. And so, we still have things that are ailing the health sector, and now to add the doctors' strike. Now, doctors to push or to down tools in push for medical cover, posting of interns. They also want the reinstating free deliveries, that is the Linda Mama. They also want a pay of 206,000 to intern doctors as per the 2017 collective bargaining agreement. Also, exams quandary as NEC budget is slashed to zero. Exams quandary as NEC budget is slashed to zero. That is a story that is on page 9 of the dailies this morning, that speaks of crisis looms over budget cuts on exam and invigilation fees. A circular by the Treasury CS Njuguna Ndungu says 24 government areas will have 100% of their budget defunded. Examination and vigilation fees is one of them. Now, this is also likely to cause an uproar from teachers who invigilate and mark this particular exam. So those are your headlines on the Standard newspaper. Now let's talk about the Daily Nation. Inside MP's plot to grab state tenders. Inside MP's plot to grab state tenders. The Senate has given public officers, that includes MPs, governors, CSs, PSs, and parastatal chiefs, a free pass to openly back government contracts after dismantling a proposed law to curb conflict of interest. All hope now lies in the National Assembly to overturn the changes. Will they listen to what the people want and overturn the changes? Now, how senators watered down key bill in plot to grab state tenders. The Senate has given public officers that mandate to curb, or rather to bag state tenders, which of course goes against a move to curb conflict of interest. The Senate has passed radical amendments that effectively watered down the Conflict of Interest Bill 2023, which was designed to discourage corruption in public procurement that saw government officials influence award of lucrative tenders to their own firms and those linked to their relatives and associates. Now, they quashed provisions prohibited government officers from seeking tenders with public entities and others that required regular declaration of wealth, including of their spouses and children, to curb unexplained accumulation of wealth. And so this particular bill will be going to the National Assembly, who can now either, pass it as a law as it is, then, eventually assented into law by President William Ruto, or turn it down. Now, by its own action, the Senate has given public officers, including MPs, governors, CSs, PSs, and parastatal chiefs, a free pass to openly bag government tenders. Also, top of the page, Sabasaba concert. Youth Kenyans, were at the Uhuru Park in Nairobi, where peace prevailed as thousands of Kenyans across the country turned up to celebrate protesters who lost their lives during the recent revolt against the controversial Finance Bill 2024. What a sharp contrast between how we are celebrating Sabasaba now and how Sabasaba was celebrated in the past, at least decades ago, where we saw a lot of torture and arrests of various freedom fighters and various activists in the country. So we'll also be taking a look at that new shape and new nature of protest in the country. Jobs reprieve for junior school teachers and intern doctors. The government has moved to safeguard the absorption of JSS teachers and medical interns on permanent and pensionable terms, despite their hiring having faced severe uncertainty following the collapse of the Finance Bill 2024. Now, their hiring will be financed through budget cuts from other government agencies, vote heads in supplementary budget for the current fiscal year of 2024-2025. And that is the headline on top of the Daily Nation. And then finally, the Star revealed financial mess at Hustler Fund. Revealed financial mess at Hustler Fund as audit unearths major irregularities in President Ruto's key flagship project. That is a story that is on page 4 and 5 of the Star newspaper this morning. Revealed big financial mess at Hustler Fund. Now, what are some of the key highlights from the Auditor General, which says 464 million shillings was disbursed to non-registered persons. That means people that are not registered to the Hustler Fund. If you're able to dial that number, which is, I believe, *254# for the Hustler Fund, well, if it's a new number, one of the requirements is for you to register. And so the audit has revealed 464 million shillings disbursed to non-registered persons. Also, 200 million shillings loans disbursed above set limits. Duplicate loan IDs used to process loans. 81 million shillings loans closed before payment. 161 million to borrowers with outstanding loans. Loan system is not properly configured. Loans issued to customer without national IDs. Authenticity of balances unconfirmed. Undisclosed customer savings interest earnings. Recovery of 8 billion shillings loans in doubt, as well as the irregular charges to customer by banks. Now, that is the audit report from the Auditor General concerning this Hustler Fund kitty, which, like I said, when we started, was the baby of the Kenya Kwanza administration. Now, billions of taxpayers' money is at stake at the Hustler Fund. It has emerged with the Auditor General unearthing major irregularities. According to a new audit, unregistered individuals and people who were not qualified for loans were advanced millions of shillings. Some people were also given loans above set limits, while others got the loans without national identity cards. Auditors are also demanding answers as to why some borrowers were given multiple loans before repayment of the previous ones, while some Kenyans were unable to get any loan at all. Now, there are, for instance, 129,000 people who borrowed a cool 81.6 million shillings. However, auditors discovered the loan accounts had been closed without a single penny repaid. That means you took a new line or registered for a new line, took the Hustler Fund, then threw away the line. And so 81.6 million shillings are unaccounted for, and much more in millions. Also, top of the page on the Star, Gen Z remember comrades killed in protests. About 41 people were killed due to the anti-finance bill and anti-government protests. And that is the headline on the Star newspaper this morning. Revealed financial mess at Hustler Fund. The Daily Nation speaks of inside MPs' plot to grab state tenders, as well as the Standard to fire or to keep Ruto's cabinet dilemma. All right, so that brings us to our first breather right here on EBN TV. Do stay with us. When we come back, we've got an engaging conversation lined up that you do not want to miss. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly. Are in a move to ensure that, you know, they are spending less on the wage bill, or at least on expenses, allowances, as well as unaccounted budgets or confidential budgets, in his own words, in various departments, particularly the executive. And there were so many austerity measures that he was able to announce, but what the people were expecting on matters cabinet reshuffle did not happen, or at least reducing the number of people in the cabinet or the cabinet secretaries did not happen. But word has it that it is likely to happen very soon. How soon is it? Well, that remains solely with the head of state. But we'd just love to interrogate some of these measures that were announced and what that means for the country's, public sector and the country's economy, putting in mind that we do not have a finance bill of 2024, 2025, or at least a budget. Because it's the month of July already. If the budget would have gone through, then it would have taken effect from July 1st of 2024, but that is not the case. And so what we are surviving on is basically supplementary budgets, as well as the governing budget that is of the financial year 2023-2024. So my guest in studio this morning, I'm joined by Willie Malile, who's a governance expert, as well as a political scientist. Thank you for your company this morning.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for inviting me here.
Good to have you.
Yes.
Well, if he makes it, David Mwangi will also be joining us, who's a political commentator and a youth leader, and was also a Nairobi senatorial aspirant for the year 2022. And so let's get started. But before we get into the conversation, I'd love us to listen into that report that was filed by my colleague George Kayesi over Friday's press statement by President William Ruto announcing new austerities measures. Let's start at that point.
President William Ruto has announced a series of austerity measures aimed at curbing government expenditure to the implication of the withdrawn finance bill.
I make this statement to highlight the actions taken in response to the overwhelming public feedback in the recent days, and to fulfill my commitment to continuously and effectively listen to the people of Kenya, and to underscore my intention to always take public contributions in good faith.
After extensive consultation, Ruto's administration has decided to implement significant cost-cutting measures, including suspension of the purchase of new government motor vehicles in government for 1 year, providing an exception only for security agencies, suspension of all non-essential travel by state officers. State officers and public servants have also been directed to keep off harambee and philanthropic activities with immediate effect.
No state officer or public servant shall participate in public contributions or harambees going forward.
Additionally, confidential budget in executive offices have been removed. Also, the decision of hiring chief administrative secretaries has been suspended. With public servants who attain the retirement age of 60 shall be required to retire immediately with no extension to their tenure. Further, government is set to reduce the budget by 177 billion and borrow 169 billion to offset 349 billion finance bill setback. Budget for the offices of the First Lady, the second and that of spouse of the Prime Cabinet Secretary shall be removed, and budget for innovation in government reduced by 50% to minimize unnecessary spending. The head of state has also appointed independent task force to conduct a forensic audit of Kenya's public debt and submit report in 3 months. 47 state corporations with similar mandates will be dissolved and the staff absorbed in permanent ministries, and government advisors reduced by 50% with immediate effect.
This audit will provide the people of Kenya with clarity on the extent and nature of our debt, how public resources have been expended, and will also recommend proposals for managing our public debt in a manner that is sustainable and does not burden future generation. The number of advisors in government shall be reduced by 50% within the public service with immediate effect.
As the nation awaits the president's next move, the demand for change underscores a broader call for reforms aimed at curbing corruption and fostering a government that is both transparent and accountable to its people. The youth, representing a significant portion of the population, are poised to continue their advocacy until tangible changes are realized. George Kayesi, reporting for EBN TV.
Well, thanks, Kayesi, for that report. Malila, let's get straight into it.
Yes.
Over the last 2 weeks, we have seen a head of state press statement that keeps on evolving. It started with, treasonous events, whatever happened on June 25th. It followed by, we've listened to, we've withdrawn the finance bill. Then followed, my government is working to ensure that, we've heard you, we've done what you wanted. And now we are having austerity measures that are being announced by the head of state. Doesn't this say he's a listening president now?
Certainly, we would say he's a listening president, but you know, the listening part of it came as a result of pressure. Pressure from the Gen Z group.
Yes.
And certainly, we've been here and we've discussed about, you know, this bill, the controversial finance bill, had been there like many other years. We've had conversations towards every end of financial year where we generate an act through the bills.
Yeah.
But this one, like last year, you remember last year we had the housing project, whatever, levy and all that. This particular bill, people had already raised alarm. People had already made noise, but seemingly the president and his team, that is the Kenya Kwanza administration, had canvassed to have it implemented to the last minute. You remember before the very first demonstration by the Gen Z group.
Yes.
I think that was the first reading time. Then we came to the second reading.
Yes.
And then on the day they had their third reading,
That's
when they were voting for every clause, you know, I remember the deputy speaker, Madam Sholei, was on the chair and she was just not listening to the noise that was out there, and that is how it ended up that the president had now to start listening after these guys stormed the National Assembly. Now, it is easier said than done. The president has been saying many things immediately after what happened in the National Assembly. After the demos, he made some sort of thinly veiled attack on the Gen Z group by insinuating that this was treasoners, you know, these were a bunch of criminals, and all sorts of things. And then you could see he was visibly very angry with the people who demonstrated on that day. Having said that, I would say from that time he gave the statement, that statement where he was seemingly threatening people. After 2 or 3 days, he seemed toned down.
Actually, 48 hours, 24 hours later. Actually.
Yes, around 48 hours, he seemed to tone down. Maybe some of his close advisors or people, maybe international calls from here and there, the UN, you know. Maybe some people got in touch with him and told him this thing is bigger than you possibly think. So if we were you, we would embrace some kind of dialogue with these people. And then the second presser, he came out and he sounded like he wanted to talk to these people. He asked for their leaders. He wanted to have a conversation with them and all that. Then the demands came in. Now, the demands included the ones that you have already aired, and his response was clear. You know, austerity measures, you know, this and that. We have to cut down this and this. But Cynthia, you know, if you remember in 2005, if you were around, immediately after the referendum of banana and orange, Kibaki, the late president of Kenya, also made a declaration that I am going to dissolve my cabinet, and you know, austerity measures. When Uhuru Kenyatta was Minister of Finance, he talked about austerity measures. Some of the demands have not started now. They have been reacted to by other presidents and other ministers in previous governments. So when the president tells us we shall put in place serious austerity measures because you have demanded for it, are you forgetting himself? He's been talking about living within our means. What is living within our means? It is literally putting in place serious austerity measures. Why haven't we seen it in the previous pronouncements that he has made that we must live within our means? I've looked at the draft of a list of measures that is putting in place. Let me tell you, Cynthia, if one of the issues that we should be talking about for purposes of austerity measures is putting down the wage bill from 47 to 35% as per the PFM Act, then that's a tall order. It is not about reducing the cabinet from 22 to 14 or 22 to 15 or the bare minimum of 14. It is not, that is not it, because how much are we going to save from cutting the cabinet by maybe 6 or 7 cabinet ministers? It's about cutting costs in those ministries.
How does he then do that? Is it?
It's about the opulence that these people display on a daily basis. You don't have to fly to Mombasa, my friend. We have a first class in SGR. Yeah? And you will spend like 3,000 to Mombasa instead of using 50,000 to Mombasa. You don't have to live in an expensive hotel. If you want to live in an expensive hotel, there should be a ceiling from the government that the maximum we can pay for you per night is 10,000. If you want to live in a house, in a room that is costing the taxpayer 60,000, you should top up the difference of 50,000, so that this thing is spread across all the departments, all the ministries, and every officer knows there is an obligation. When you go to a seminar, to a workshop out of the country, this is the maximum you can spend. There should be no leeway for anybody to spend whatever they want to spend. Why should we have every other Tom, Dick and Harry in the streets of Nairobi driving in siren vehicles with some tough-looking police officers, wielding their walkie-talkies through the windows, pushing people to pave way for a convoy for a PS, for heaven's sake. Some of the PSs that were appointed were our buddies. We were getting stuck
in traffic with
them just the other day. When you invited me to this studio, and I saw it that I was supposed to be here by 7, I had to be up by 5 because I know where I'm coming from. I had to beat traffic or use the expressway. All right? So if you are a PS and you want to get to your office in good time, don't get out of your house at when it is only 15 minutes to the meeting that you are attending. Then you start harassing pedestrians when you are driving through the pavements. It does not make sense. These austerity measures do not require a scientist or anybody to come and help us to put in place some tough measures. We must start with the legislation, so that we can cap the expenditures in every ministry. Recurrent budget, my friend. I was looking at the recurrent budget of Makueni County. When we get 12 billion shillings per year, we spend 8 billion on recurrent expenditure, and then we are left with barely 4 billion for development. It should be the other way around, for heaven's sake. We should spend 4 billion on recurrent and probably use the 8 billion on development. So us as taxpayers, what we are getting from government is far less than what we contribute as our taxes. Maybe 1 million workforce of public service. Cynthia, you should agree with me, every single day we have natural attrition of public servants, right? Some of them pass away, some of them retire, some of them resign. If we want this wage bill not to continue ballooning, we must put in place some raft of measures through legislation, that now, some of these ministries, like say Minister of Agriculture, in Nairobi, they have very little work to do in that ministry, because that's a function which is already devolved. It is in the counties. Why should we have a Department of Agriculture in Nairobi County? Where is Sakaja planting some tomatoes? Where do we have dairy cows in Nairobi? You find every county must have 10 departments headed by a CEC. So what does the CEC for Agriculture in Nairobi do? What does the CEC for Agriculture in Mombasa do? Well, you get it. You get the point.
Yes.
So we must have a conversation towards getting rid of those departments, which do not even have anything to do on a daily basis. People just sit in their offices, they read newspapers
and drink tea,
and they are waiting for salary. They take heavy loans. They want to service. These are the people who are killing us, for heaven's sake. So the president must ensure the 47% is not taken by the wage bill.
Right.
But we must cut it down to that 5%.
35%.
Yes, yes.
Now, earlier you said, you know, what the head of state needs to do is cut down ministerial costs, or, you know, at least budget allocations to some of the,
Yes.
of the ministries. But if you look at some of these austerity measures, in real sense, they are going to save money, because Office of the First Lady, Office of the Second Lady,
Certainly.
Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary have been receiving tunes to the millions. If we do a total tally of the 3 offices, it gets to 1 billion. Now, for the Chief Administrative Secretaries, for the 50 of them who were to get into office, one CSS would have cost the taxpayer about 46 million shillings in a year. Same as the 47 parastatals which will be cut off. So, in essence, they are saving money, but not in the way perhaps Kenyans would have expected, but the government is saving money.
Okay, Cynthia, let me tell you something. You know, there's something I'm trying to emphasize here.
Yeah.
We can cut down the ministries to 10, not even 14. Of course, the minimum is 14. We can cut them down to 10, but still spend the same amount that was spent by the 22 ministries.
Right, because there are some that would have been merged.
All right?
Yeah.
Because there are some that would have been merged.
Yeah.
You know, the costs of running these 22 ministries can also be the cost for running the 10 ministries.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That is why I'm saying we must be very careful, not just to make noise that we must cut down the ministries. It is about cutting down the ministries and then implementing some other rafts of measures to cap their spending. Okay? To reduce the opulence. Not to expose these ministers, these CSs, into getting monies from contractors. For instance, I remember during the demonstrations, the Azimio demonstrations in Mlolongo, there was massive destruction on the expressway.
Yeah.
And then the CS for Transport visited the scene, and from nowhere he mentioned
700 billion.
He mentioned an obnoxious amount of money. He had not consulted a quantity surveyor.
Yeah.
He had not come with technical people to check on what had been the destruction that had been done, and there were no estimates from professionals given to him. But from nowhere, he mentioned how much? 700?
Was it 7 billion?
Was it 7
I'm
billion?
not wrong, yeah.
If I'm not wrong. And you would wonder, where did he get that figure from? You get it? So some of these things, I'm saying, you can scrap the First Lady's office completely, and the accompanying budget. But that budget can be hidden in another ministry. It can be hidden in the Ministry of Gender. Yeah, and so the First Ladies will go to the Minister for Gender, tell them we are going to visit some people in Karatina who are doing. We want to educate them on this issue of drug abuse. We need 20 million. Then they'll be given from that ministry. According to us as citizens, we will think that they don't have a budget, but we'll still see them moving around. Okay? We can hide those. There are many ways of hiding money in budget.
So it's a scenario of the government giving with one hand and taking with the other.
You know, if I am the president, I would say my wife, my spouse will not be getting budget, but I can even get a budget for her from my own budget. All right? Yeah. When I exhaust my budget, I'll be seeking for supplementary and the reallocation of funds because I have exhausted my money. Whereas 30% of what I have gotten, I have given to the First Lady.
Yeah.
So it is about, if we have to succeed in this, it is about telling the president, telling the spouse, and the first lady and the second lady and that lady of the other guy who is holding this constitutional office to stay home, because that is where they belong. And if they want to engage members of the public, they should seek partnership with the donors. Yeah, they should seek partnership with the international community, USAID, you know. Whereas even those other partners can work with the ministries. They don't have to work with these offices that are not even recognized in our constitution. So it's not enough. It's about principle, it's about legislation.
Right.
I blame members of parliament. They should define very clearly what the roles of a first lady are. She should stay in white, I almost said White House, at the State House. You should stay in the State House. When they have visitors, you should accompany the president, welcome them to State House, because State House is like a home, you know, and show them around, those who are the ladies, you know, who come into our country, but without a budget. It's a budget for doing what? We are agitating for money to be spent on serious issues like development. We have, my friend, if you go to those up-country villages, you find there's no water anyway. People are drinking dirty water from dams, water which is extremely contaminated. People are using donkeys to go and fetch water from quite a number of kilometers from their homes. We have no medicine in our hospitals, right? We have terrible, like I was listening in the morning when I was coming, where there's traffic, you know. Look at the landmark projects that Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta did. The expressway, Thika superhighway, and many other projects that those two presidents did. Where has, mention one single project which President Ruto has initiated for the last 2 years? Because it's been in office since September 2022.
Well, they said the government needs about 3 years before you can start seeing what.
No. Every single year there's a budget, right? Even if the project is not complete, right? It should be somewhere. We should be told this highway is 10 or 15 or 30% complete. If a project is supposed to run for 5 years, we should be told we have several projects that have been initiated. Let's say like the housing project, for example, which according to me, I don't even appreciate at all. Because I thought the housing project would be like, unakumbuka zile nyumba zilikuwa za Kajo, where people would pay 3,000 shillings as rent, and they would really, they endeavored to help the very lowest of the lowest. But here we have a project, housing project, which houses will be sold at maybe 4 million or 5 million, which Mama Mboga or boda guy will get 4 or 5 million to buy a house.
All right. Now, let's talk about the sustainability of these austerity measures, because, for instance, the Chief Administrative Secretary positions, Ruto President, says remain suspended for 12 months. If you do the math, that means it will be back just in time for the financial year 2025-2026.
Suspended for 12 months.
For 12 months. And so, you know, it sounds like these are just for this particular financial year, or at least for now, you know, to calm the people down and to show them that, you know, we are a listening government. And so, in any way, do you see this sort of the government going back on its word in future financial years? Because they've got about 3 of them before the first term ends, if they'll be going for the second term. But how can we sustain this in the long run?
First of all, the issue of CS, the reason why I blame everything on our National Assembly, actually on members of Parliament as a whole, together with the Senate and the National Assembly, is because they are the ones who passed the law on bringing back CSs. CSs were not supposed to be there in the first place. They are not provided for in the Constitution. That was one of the raft of measures that the framers of our Constitution had in mind. They never wanted to bloat our cabinet. You know, when you are told you will not have a principal assistant, for instance, where you sit now, why do you need a deputy? You ask me a question and then the deputy also asks a question.
Says, you know,
you know, I wanted to compliment what you have said, Cynthia. So, Mr. Malile. So what I'm trying to say is there's no need for this law that CSS must be there. We don't even need more than 1 PS or principal secretary in every ministry. We had many ministers before. You know, during the Moi regime, we could even have 40 ministers. Maybe Moi had an idea of, you know, every tribe gets one. Now, that time has come for the president to think about regional balance as the key factor for appointing these people. You know, it's not about tribe anymore, because if we have 44 tribes in this country, it is pointless for us to start arguing about, you know, this is Kikuyu, this is Kamba. It is the high time we started talking about the former provinces. you know, the very 8 regions. Yeah, the very 8 majimbos, so that we may get at least 1 minister from every region. We can't lack somebody who has attained the qualifications of a minister in our own region, right? That will sort the issue of regional balance. At the same time, if I come from Eastern, for instance, now myself, if I come from Eastern, and a minister is appointed from the Embu community, I should not complain, because that person is in that region that I come from, right? Because these Gen Z guys are making us walk away from looking at things from the perspective of tribe. Yeah, they don't want us to talk about, you know, you belong to each tribe, you are Kamba, you are Kalenjin, you are Luo. No, we must now walk away from that kind of thinking. Most of these appointees are done on the basis of tribe, and that is now the worst. Tribalism is the worst killer of our economy in this country. I saw Murkomen yesterday in an interview where he talked about austerity measures, and I just laughed. Talking about austerity measures when he's wearing that expensive watch and those shoes, somebody's struggling to look for 10,000 to pay for school fees for their children. I saw another post in social media where somebody broke their ribs and arms and was taken to hospital, could not afford that 5,000 shillings for medication. And somebody is wearing millions in a watch, hundreds, maybe 200-300 shillings in shoes. And you can imagine how many other items in their body that are as expensive. You know, some we can't even mention. So if we can't live that opulently and then pretend to be doing anything about taming unwarranted expenditure in government, no, there must be discipline. And it must start with dissolving cabinet.
What are the ripple effects of dissolving a cabinet? You know, for a head of state to dissolve a cabinet, what does that say about his presidency so far?
It will not happen for the first time. Kibaki did the same. When he had constituted a cabinet before he brought in Raila as a partner in government. If you remember, he announced that everybody must go home, and then he made a pronouncement that these are the new ministers. It is re-energizing his government. It is bringing in some impetus, fresh impetus, you know, some semblance of good leadership. Because if he says everybody go home, and then he keeps quiet for 3-4 days, you know, that's suspense. And then he brings in people. New
faces.
I looked at the president's appointments for this issue of public debt.
Yeah, the
task force. And I looked at the qualifications of those people. I really salivated, because these people would have done a good job. When he picks on East Park, he picks on the president LSK, he picks on those engineers of the president engineers of Kenya. You know, that is where we should have started. That is where we should you know, if the cabinet had taken that shape of the appointment of that task force, this country would be in a different place. You know, because Aisha Jumwa versus the president of engineers or whatever of Kenya, right? You know, you look at somebody else like who in government. I wouldn't want to mention Moses Kuria. Moses Kuria is a brilliant guy. It's only that he's underrated. There are many cabinet ministers who are clueless, as a matter of fact. Who are clueless.
Even the head of state actually himself admitted once and said, some of you are sitting here and they know more about your ministry.
Yes, you find the president knows more than you do in the ministry that you are in charge. And he has 22 ministries that he's watching over. So you are watching over one ministry, and what he knows about the ministry is more. It means you are not competent, as a matter of fact, right? You remember when Aisha Juma was appointed, our CS for public service, the first pronouncement was salary increment for all staff in Huduma centers and I don't know where. And I was like, now this lady has been a member of parliament. She knows you cannot make such a policy direction through the media. You must consult the treasury. You must consult other bodies like SRC. You know, there are quite a number of a raft of things. If I am saying that from where I sit at EBN,
and you're not a CS,
and I'm not a CS,
yeah,
you know, she should be able to do more than any other ordinary Kenyan can do. So if the president would dissolve his cabinet, I would urge him to get competent guys, very competent guys, the very refined ones, you know, the level of this task force that he had for auditing our public debt. And then see, this country would start making good decisions.
Right, and you know, what you said really reflects on the biggest problem we have as a country, is that when it comes to cabinet and a new president gets into position, or at least after every election, when the president gets into position, it's a matter of rewarding the loyalists, people that supported them one way or the other during their campaign. And that's the biggest problem that we have.
That's the biggest problem.
Because, you know, President William Ruto is now at a position where he's in between a rock and a hard place. You know, does he fire some of these people that were very loyal to him, supported him, or does he go the people's way and just turn his back on this loyalist? And then what happens now in 2027? So how do we shift this?
I don't envy the president. The position that he's in is not a position that you can envy him. Of course, he's the head of state and he has access to quite a number of things. But I had a very good sleep last night. He didn't have.
You don't want that job.
So I don't envy him at all. Why? Can you imagine him sacking Mithika Linturi? Meru will be up in arms. You know.
Or Kithure Kindiki.
For instance, you know, you'll hear Tharaka Nithi, you know, burning tires. you try to touch on Aisha Jumwa, and the part of Coast, Kilifi, will be protesting. Let him touch on Governor Alfred Mutua. Kambas, even if they have never associated with him, they will say he's our son, and you know he cannot be touched. If you touch him, you touch us. You know, I don't envy. I don't envy the president at all, because he's in a precarious position. It is not a very easy decision to get rid of some of these people, because they were appointed on the strength of, you know, I want to take care of that community, because I need them in the near future. If I mistreat this community, I'm not likely to be treated any better. You know, look at the deputy president, the utterances that he's making. The president is so constrained to talk to him or to talk him down, to address him directly, because he knows that much as this person may not have necessarily been the favorite of a certain region, now he has become their favorite. You get it? Everybody is useful in their community, especially at a time when they are exposed to danger. Okay? Probably you have never subscribed to Raila Odinga, but when he's mistreated, he becomes your concern. He becomes your concern. If anybody mistreats Kalonzo, even if I have never subscribed to his ideologies, becomes a concern. If he is mistreated today, I will certainly be concerned why he's being mistreated. So tell me how the president is feeling when he's being told, get rid of your cabinet. He'll get rid of that cabinet. A few of us will clap, because it's a bold decision, and we will also appreciate the fact that he's trying to put in place a team that can deliver, right? That can transform this country. He will do that, of course. Then after doing that, Mithika Linturi will disappear for a week, and then he'll emerge from his village with some elders.
Addressing journalists.
You know, saying, you know, look, we have been sacrificed. So would you envy the president yourself?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely no.
Now, because I can say our time is really catching up on us, Marlene, let's talk about the public debt. And as you rightfully mentioned, there's a task force that has been put up in place with a total of about 7 people that is meant to audit the public debt that we have. Now, according to the National Treasury, I believe as of June, May thereabout, we had a debt status of about 11.3 trillion shillings in the country. That's how many times? That's 3 times the country's budget and what we have. And it is also reported that in every 10 shillings that is collected by government, 6 shillings goes into paying debt, 4 goes into government, perhaps salaries and development and etc. And that is the situation we are in right now. The worry is that, and perhaps the reason why the president has reconstituted or constituted this kind of team is because it could be that the debt has, or this debt status has been inflated and that it's not even at 11.3, it could be lower, or perhaps they're just ghostly debts that have been put up within this debt situation in the country. What would you speak about that?
You know, I have been following very keenly on this matter of public debt. And if you listen to Senator Okiya Omtata, you'll pick his mind that whatever he alludes is close to what you are saying, that it is possible could be servicing a ghost debt, right? If you listen to Wanjigi, Maina Wanjigi, is he Maina Wanjigi? Jimmy Wanjigi. If you listen to him, you will also find he has his reservations on our public debt. But I actually thought that we should have supported the idea of an audit by bodies which are very independent, like the
Auditor General.
Like away from the Auditor Generals, whatever. You know, the Auditor General has had the opportunity to audit those debts before. Their reports are there, but the debt seems to be ballooning each and every day. Remember, an Auditor General is an officer of government. Whatever comes from government, most of our people, from what has been pumped into our heads, cannot be trusted. We will say this Auditor General has been told to make this pronouncement by the state. So it was actually in the wisdom of the president. You know, I wouldn't like to beat the bush about this. It was in his wisdom to have an independent body, some people with a semblance of etiquette, you know, integrity. You know, when they are dealing with this matter, they deal with it once and for all. The LSK president was the right person to be there because she represents some people who can interrogate documents. You get it? She can put in place people to assist her, a small secretariat from her office to assist her in checking a few things. You remember, lawyers are trained in different fields. There are those who are in criminology, there are those who are in international law, and many other fields. They would be of great use in interrogating this debt. Number 2, when you talk about the president for engineer something of Kenya, right? Some debts were taken to do some road works somewhere. When you have an engineer there, he will help you to get a rough idea of whether there was value for money which came from a certain place like the IMF. Let us look at ISPAC. If somebody from ISPAC is in that team, would have brought in the attributes of audit of monies and how money was spent. Probably, if these people were to take up the responsibility and do it, execute it well, Kenyans would have a lot of confidence in their report, because the lady who sits at the helm of the LSK, she has positioned herself to a certain level that people have a lot of trust in whatever she says, right? And she does not look like she has an allegiance to any side of government. She's neither in the opposition nor in government. So she would have, whatever she would have made, whatever she would have said in the long run after auditing this debt would have been credible. Now tell me, when they decline, have they helped the country in getting out of this mess? how shall we ever get out of that thinking that this debt could be ghost debt? I saw the opposition celebrating that, you know, LSK, you have done very well. You did very well to decline. If it was unconstitutional for you to take up the responsibility of auditing that debt, let me ask you, when Robert Ouko was killed, was there a commission of inquiry? Are you saying we did not have DCI of that time, which is the body which was charged with the responsibility of investigation? Wasn't it the DCI? But there was a commission of inquiry. The Golden Bag, wasn't there a commission of inquiry on what happened, what really happened? Are you telling me there was no office of the Auditor General at that time? That office was still there, but that commission did their part and gave a report. So anybody alluding otherwise that this thing was unconstitutional, even if you are a lawyer, I think I don't subscribe to that at all. All
right.
That is a disservice on Kenyans.
Right.
They should have taken that responsibility
and
to tell us the truth. Yes.
All right, and so as we wrap this conversation up, because we're out of time, we are expecting that the head of state will either fire or reshuffle his cabinet any minute or from now, I'd say, looking at what insiders have been, talking about. What do you expect as Malide from where you sit? You earlier mentioned that if you see persons like, president of LSK and from professional bodies, people that have got that capability and have got those kind of portfolios getting into cabinet. But what do you expect from where you sit as we wrap it up?
I would urge the president to appoint professionals, serious people with integrity, people who cannot embarrass him.
Yeah.
I've seen some videos going around about one of his cabinet secretaries, in a compromising position. So if he were to follow the route that he followed in appointing the task force for auditing the public debt and get us serious people, I would appreciate, provided he does not touch one CS for Interior, Professor Kithure Kindiki, because from where I sit, I feel he's the only minister who seems to know what he's doing. The rest should go. The other 21 should just go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, thank you very much. Willie Malile was a governance expert and political scientist. Thank you for your time and insights this morning on various issues around the executive, that is the head of state, President William Ruto. And it is about time Malile says that he ditches loyalists and whatever they call themselves, but just go for professionals in a bid to ensure that he drives this country in the right way. Well, we wrap it up at that point. Thank you very much for your wonderful company. I hope that you're adequately informed this morning. My name is Cynthia Nanjala. Have yourself a fantastic Monday.